Hey, it's Ross from the Infectious Groove Podcast and Vinyl Channel. Coming up today, I'm going to talk about people who own multiple pressings of the exact same album. I said I was never going to be that guy, and yet here I sit with multiple pressings of a couple of different albums. So we're going to get into a little bit of why I did that and why people do it overall, coming right up. I thought I'd do a video on this topic because it's something that you see quite a bit in the vinyl community. There's people out there who pride themselves actually on getting as many different pressings of Sgt. Pepper's or Thriller or Whipped Cream and other delights. There's so many albums that you see people try to get as many different pressings as they can, and oftentimes people wonder why. And I used to be that way too. I used to wonder all the time, why would you need so many different pressings of, the exact same album? And as I started to look into it more, and if you're watching this video and you're one of those people, you probably think, well, yeah, because there's so many differences between a lot of different pressings, and for different reasons you want to own different versions, or you just plain want to collect the albums itself to have, you're a big passionate fan of that particular album. Me personally, I never thought that I would end up getting several different versions of the exact same record. And when I say exact same, as we get into the ones that I have, or some of the ones that I have multiple pressings of, I can explain a little bit of why I did it, and it's probably the logic behind why most people do it with other records as well. So for me personally, I pulled a couple of examples of albums that I own different pressings of the exact same album, and I thought I'd get into a little bit of why and see if it matches up with some of the reasons why you might have done that with some albums as well. First up on the docket is a couple of pressings of the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Now, the regular pressing here that I have, the first one that I got, was a Capitol reissue from about 10 years ago or so, before the real big vinyl boom hit. So you could pick this up for like $20 or so. And it was just easier to get a good, clean, new pressing of Pet Sounds instead of seeking out a possibly beat up old original pressing of it for around half price or so. So that's why I picked that up at the time. In the time since, QRP Analog Productions has done a wonderful set of reissues of this album. They've actually done this in stereo, mono, 33 and 45. I did a whole video detailing some audiophile pressing that I love, and this made it in there, so I kind of explained why I settled on the one that I did. But that was why I ended up getting 2 copies of Pet Sounds, because I'd always read that this is the way to hear the album. And the one that I had wasn't bad by any stretch, but I didn't overpay for that copy, and I'd heard that this here from Analog Productions was really the way to go and the one to hear, so I ended up buying multiple copies of that. This next one, I only pulled one copy of this record because I did a video on the channel previously. You can go back and check out for several different pressings of the White Album that I own. I detailed in that video why, but this here, the short version, this is the newest version. This is the 2018 one that came in a box set with a double LP of demos, and it's a Giles Martin remix of the album. So in this case, it's not even the exact same album, it's quite a bit different mix, and that's why I own the other 2 versions of the White Album I have as well. I have a mono mix, which is quite a bit different from the stereo mix, and then I have the Mobile Fidelity stereo mix because that's pretty much the best one I've heard. So between the 3 versions of it, this happens to be my favorite Beatles album. So most times I end up pulling this 2018 Giles Martin stereo mix, but there are advantages to hearing the differences on the mono version, or even hearing how it used to be mastered with the stereo version from Mobile Fidelity, so that's why I keep all 3. Now, this next one has to do with what a huge fan I am of the artist and differences between the 3 pressings, and one of them you could even argue is not even a exact same pressing or the same album, because it's more of the estate calls it a super deluxe edition, but the fans don't. It's more of a, I guess, just deluxe edition. But that is Michael Jackson's Bad. I have these 2 pressings of it, and I'll get into a third one in a minute. Now, a lot of people don't know that when Bad was initially released on vinyl, it was missing the final track that was on the CD and cassette versions of the album. So this album closes with, and I've got a fan club inner here from the original pressing, which is kind of cool. This album closes with Smooth Criminal, which many people find odd because the album is supposed to close with Leave Me Alone. Leave Me Alone was included on the CD as a bonus track in an effort to get customers to continue to adapt to the CD technology, and that's why it was left off the original vinyl pressing. Years later, the brand Music on Vinyl reissued many of Michael's albums. They reissued Bad. Everything about it looks exactly the same, except for the fact that it has Leave Me Alone on the last track. So when you round out side 2, Smooth Criminal, and then Leave Me Alone, which for many people, that's how the album completes. So that's one that I picked up just to have the complete album. And even though original pressings of Bad aren't hard to come by, it's not rare or anything, I just happen to be a big enough fan that I like having both, and it is one of my favorite MJ albums, so I'm okay with having both. Now this here is an entirely different story. This is the third version of Bad that I have, which is, again, the estate calls this the Super Deluxe Edition. I personally think it's deluxe at best. It's not. There could have been a lot more done with this material, but it is in a triple gatefold, which is pretty cool because it's a 3 LP set. Some cool behind-the-scenes pictures inside. Now, the first LP of this is exactly the same track listing that's on the Music on Vinyl version of it, with the album rounding out with Smooth Criminal and Leave Me Alone. However, the real attraction to this set is you get 2 full LPs of demos of songs that didn't make the album. Some of this stuff is very revelatory, such as there's a track on here called Al Capone, which is Smooth Criminal in its infancy stages, and you could really hear the difference between where Al Capone started and what it became in Smooth Criminal. But then you have other tracks on here like Streetwalker, which are completed tracks that absolutely could have been part of the Bad record and released to radio as a single and would have been huge hits. So for a big Michael Jackson fan, it's definitely worth having this version as well. But again, I do count it as having another copy of the same album because you get the full track listing that you get on a regular pressing of Bad, and then you get the extra 2 LPs. So even though it's considered a deluxe edition, it's really having the same album 3 times. So of the 3, if I was going to bounce one, I could probably bounce the Music on Vinyl version of it. But whenever I don't want to mess around with the whole triple gatefold and everything, it's just easier to have the complete album on a single LP. So I know you're out there. I know there are people who have way more of the same pressing of an album than I do. What are some of the ones that you have? What are the reasons for them? Are there other pressings I need to know about that I don't have of these particular albums? Leave a comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed the video, please make sure to hit the like button. I hope today is the day that we earned your subscription, so please make sure to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. But most importantly, get involved in the discussion below. We'd love to hear from other music fans. Thanks a lot for watching.